Hey everyone, Andrew here, Melbourne Superman. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today that I've not ever done before. Now, a lot of people ask me sometimes about how I edit my photos. On my Instagram, which you can find at Melbourne Superman on Instagram, 99% really, of my photos I edit and shoot myself. There, of course, are some photos that I feature from other photographers, other editors, but mostly I shoot and edit by myself. Now, I will preface this by saying I am in no means a master photographer or a master editor. Really, I just kind of sort of make it up as I go, really, and I just kind of learn as I go. So I shoot, my camera is a basic Sony Cybershot HX400V. It's like a $400, $500 camera. It's the basic DSLR camera. It doesn't do much. It's got a single lens. You can't change it. Sometimes I shoot on my phone. And in terms of editing, I use a combination of Photoshop, Lightroom on my computer. Now, those are of course subscription based. So what I'm going to talk about today are apps that you can get on your phone and how you can edit on your phone with free software that you don't need to pay for. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, in real time, I'm going to edit a photo and I will just kind of narrate what I'm doing. And then we can go from there. So let's have fun. Let's edit a photo. I'm going to pick one out at random now and here we go. All right, so here we go. So I've picked my photo. It was just from a shoot that I had done a little while ago. So the first thing I do is I open this photo up with Photoshop Express and I choose the cutout option. Then what I do is it will basically pick what is going to be cut out, and then whatever's not, I'll go in and fine tune it with the brush or the smart cutout tool. 9 times out of 10, it works pretty well. Sometimes I might have to add something back in, like the cape. In this particular case, I might even take out some of the hair, just giving myself a bit of a haircut. This way, I look like I'm a little bit kempt. I'm not aiming for perfection with this video, so I'm just going to do some basic, just basic trimming. But you can take as little or as much time as you want, make it as detailed as you want, and then click on the edit button. There it is, and that's what we have. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize it and just make it as big as I can so that when I do move it into another app, I can make sure that it's the right size that I need. So what I do now is I just make sure that it's going to save as a PNG, which of course just means that the background is not there, and I will save it as a PNG. So now that I've done that, I've opened up the picture in PicsArt. And so there's a bunch of different things that we can do, but the first thing I'll generally do is go to the recolor option because I want to get rid of this green screen glow. And you can choose any type of hue that you want. For this particular one, I'll probably do the dark blue and, for what I think I have in mind for this, and that's what I'll do. Of course, in something like Photoshop, you can do that a little bit easier. With masking. Now there I see that I've missed something on the cutout, so I'm going to have to deal with it because as you can see, with the recolor, it's not going to pick up the white because there's no pigment there, so I can't recolor that. So I'm going to have to fix that later as I get into Snapseed. So right now I'm just going to focus on adding some effects to this. Now, the first thing is I'm going to put it into an image. In this case, I'm going to look up the dark clouds. You can really search anything. There's tons of free images that you can use, or you can use something from your own photo library. You can see that there is a way to blur or unblur. I'm going to go with completely unblurring the photo and just leaving it as is. And what I'll do is I'll just sort of locate the picture as needed. I don't really need to do much in this one, so I'll just leave it there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some lens flares. You can use whatever lens flare you want. In this case, I'm going to use this little laser looking bad boy, and this is going to form basically my heat vision. So what I want to make sure I do here is I kind of want to make sure that the beam of the lens flare sort of lines up with my other eye so that, when you do put the second one in, they line up and it's right on the same level as my eye, the same eye line, the same the same level, basically. So now what I'll do is I'll just click this, I'll duplicate that so that it's now the same size, same everything, and I'll just line them up, and there you go. You can experiment with that, what type of angle you want and that sort of thing, but this is that's the basic gist of it in terms of how to do heat vision in PicsArt. So what I've done now is gone to the mask option, and there are different things you can do. In this case, I can add something like rain. I'm not going to do it right now. We'll come back to that, but that's where you can add those little effects. You can change the hue, change the opacity, that sort of thing. So there's a bunch of different filters that you can use. I'm not going to set anything up right now, but these are all the different looks you can use just within PicsArt. So there's a lot of different cool stuff and different ways that you can tweak and fade them and make it look the way that you want. Okay, so now what I've done is I've gone ahead and opened that picture into Snapseed. This is where the magic happens. So we're going to go back to where that one bit that I missed was, and we're going to use the healing tool to get rid of it. And this is going to take some playing around with because it's kind of finagly and it's kind of finicky, but you get to and again, I'm not taking a lot of time here. You can perfect this as much as you want, but you can just get rid of this stuff and shape it the way you need. And we're gonna call that a day for that, and that's close enough to what we're looking at here. So from there, I'm going to go into the brush tool. So the brush tool, there's different things like temperature, exposure, dodge and burn, that sort of thing. And in this particular case, we're just going to look at changing, the exposure on the eye line where the heat vision is coming out of. That's a little bit too much, so I'm going to just go ahead and erase that because that looks a little bit crazy, and I'm going to just soften it a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll just bring the exposure just down just a little bit, and I'll just brush along the eyes, so it's very, very, very subtle. And then once I do any kind of brushing, I'll always go out of it so that I can save that, and then I'll go back into the brush so that I can start something new. Because the thing about the brush is if you mess up, you can't undo it. You have to erase it, and that can be a little bit hard. So here I'm just playing with the exposure and the lighting of the bottom half because I want that to be a little bit darker. You can see that's a little bit too dark, so I'm just going to soften that a little bit and just give it a little bit of simple dynamics. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of drama to the cape, a little bit of flair to the cape. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into that brush tool, dodge and burn, choose a little bit of the lighter options, that's a positive number, and just go over the edges of the cape to add a little bit of, illusion that there's light coming through it. And you'll see that that it's poking up above the cape a little bit. I'm not keeping this too clean, but I'll just go back in a second with the eraser tool, and I'll make sure that I get rid of some of that. So you just go along the edges. You don't have to go too crazy. It doesn't have to be exact. And then you just basically go along the top of it to get any bits that you got that were not part of the cape, just so that you can clean it up. And it doesn't take long. I use my little stylus, and I'll just kind of paint it in really quickly. And again, like always, you can take as much time as you want. You can put as much detail into it as you want. So I'll basically do that, and I might just add a little bit of, more lighting to the rest of the cape. But what I won't do is I won't make it too much so that it's too intense. So I'm going to go back in and just with the bottom of the cape, just add a little bit more of that light brushing tool so that you can just see, there we go. You can see it just kind of lighting up the cape a little bit, and it gives it that little bit of extra something. And so now what you can do is you can go into the portrait tool, and you can check out, sort of what you might want the face of your subject to look like. So we're going to head into there, and I'm going to just do a little bit of close-up. I'm going to play with the softening a little bit. Not really a fan of that, so I'll go into the details and the sharpening and make sure that I sharpen the photo a little bit. I might play with the structure a little bit to make some of the features come out a little bit more. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to get in and just look at some of the details. So this little part of the suit where it's kind of like jutting out because of the rubber in the suit, I might try to heal that so that it's a little bit more smooth and it's a little bit less sort of in your face. And again, it's a free thing, so it's never going to be perfect, but you'll get it to the point where it's passable, because especially if you're putting this on something like Instagram, there's going to be so much happening in this photo that people won't notice that. And then once I do that, I might, okay it and then go back in with another healing tool and just sort of heal over the heels just to just to hide them a little bit, make them a little bit more subtle, just so that if there is somebody who's really looking closely, you can get away with it. Not, you might need to undo certain things like I just did just to make sure that things are working. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and use my brush tool again and sort of add a little bit of flair to my gauntlets here. Just really lightly, just a nice, just softening the light there so that there's a little bit more light reflecting off of them, bringing out the features of them just a little bit, just like a simple stroke or two, and that's all you need. Now what I'll do is I'll do the same thing with the belt and the sides. So just to make it a little bit more, dynamic. I could go in and play with the sharpness. I'm not going to, just because we don't need to, I don't think. So we'll just add a little bit of light to that. And this is sometimes where I kind of get into trouble because sometimes I like to try to bring out the emblem. So I'm going to try to do that here. Might not work, but I'm going to experiment. That's the name of the game. We're going to try to experiment with stuff. So I'm going to go in, play with the emblem a little bit, play with my exposure, play with the brushing, make it maybe a little bit darker. We'll see how that looks. I think probably at this point I've already overdone it. That's a bad habit that I have, is over editing stuff. So I'll try to play with this for a little bit. And again, you want to play, you want to have a play, you want to experiment with all this stuff because you might find something that really works for you and you might just really be like, yo, I enjoy what that looks like now. And it could become one of your favorite edits. That's why I always tell people, if they're going to edit a photo, if they're going to practice on a photo, practice on the photo that you want to edit, because you might actually do something really great. And you're like, if you do that on a photo that you're not going to use, the last thing you want to be like is, oh man, I just did this perfectly. I don't know if I'm going to be able to replicate this. So you always want to use the photo that you're going to end up using. And the good thing about all these is that they are non-destructive. Like they will keep your original photo the way that it is. So when you export these, it just saves as a different copy. It doesn't mess with your original one. So we're going to export this now, and we're going to head into PicsArt. So I know there is a bit of back and forth here. That's kind of what I do to get it perfect. So I've opened the picture now in PicsArt. I've already kind of seen that I'm not loving the S, so I'm going to try to hide some of the mistakes that I've made with the brush with a flare and see if that works. If not, it's all good. I can go back and just sort of redo it in Snapseed and, sort of undo what I had just done, because it will save that copy as long as you don't quit the application. You just want to make sure that you save your draft. So I'm not loving it. I don't really like the look of that. So I'm going to go back into Snapseed and fix it. Okay, so I'm back in Snapseed. I opened up my original and basically just undid that last action. So now what I'm doing is I'm going through the different looks that you can see with Snapseed, and I'm just kind of picking out my favorites. And, there's a few that I like. I like the portrait, smooth, faded glow, the morning, and the bright are cool. So I'll save a couple of these just to make sure, and to edit a few of them just so I can figure out what my favorite ones are later. So these are just sort of pre-programmed filters and looks that you can just apply to whatever photo that you're editing. So I'll just pick 3 and I'll export these, and then I'll open them up in PicsArt and more or less do the same edit to each of them and just see whichever one comes out the way that I like it, and I'll go from there. Okay, so basically what I've done is I've opened up one of the versions that I've exported, and I'm just playing with the mask now, and it's as simple as that. So I'm basically going to export that. I'll open up a different version that I've saved, and what I'll do is I will add the mask to that. And so I'm just basically adding these masks to these different versions, and I'm making it look a little bit stormy. Now, you can add the mask more than once to make it look like there's more rain. I find that just one is fine. If I add more, sometimes the photo just gets too hectic. So I'll just keep doing that. And then I'll play with some of the filters that PicsArt has to offer, like the HDR one. That's kind of cool. The Dodger, the poster. And you can just play with the fades, see how much detail or not you want. You might go into the comic or the cartoon, do the same thing, and you can play with the lines, different stuff like that. I generally don't use those ones just because that's kind of not, I guess, if I had a style. I guess I have a style, that's not it. The HDR one's kind of cool in this particular shot. So now I have a few different versions of each photo, and I can export them as I want, and then, I'm basically ready to use those photos on Instagram. Well, that was it. So basically how to edit a photo in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Very, very simple, very basic, but you can get a bunch of different kinds of looks. I know there were a couple moments in there where I went back and forth because in my mind, like I always have an idea of what I'd like a photo to look like, but it doesn't always work out that way. And while I'm editing, I might find, that's kind of not the direction that I wanted to go in, and I'll just scratch it, go back, start again. Sometimes I'll leave a photo for a day or two before going back again, because the worst thing that you can do is get so frustrated that you just decide to quit and, never come back to it. So lots that you can do. So again, you want to be using Photoshop Express, Snapseed, PicsArt. Those are the 3 things that I use on my phone the most. Sometimes I'll use other pieces. I might do some other videos depending on the popularity of this one on different types of edits, but yeah, there you go. So I hope you enjoyed that basic edit, and thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.